Hi, we're going to start our online session today. We are going to go over the sample midterm. We're getting ready for the midterm exam. Just please check your emails regularly. Also check the class announcement regularly. Every Friday you should receive email and announcements regarding the sessions that we're going to have online, and be prepared to ask questions. We're going to do this again for preparing for the final exam. Now we are working on the midterm. Quick reminder about the questions that you're supposed to post in the discussion forum. Some of you already done that. Some of you in class, you haven't done any problem. So you need to go to that discussion forum to receive the participation points. You need to post your questions from the sample or practice midterm exam. And please read the other questions that already been posted. Don't duplicate them. Some of you did that already. You duplicate the problems. I just want to see new problems. If you've seen somebody done problem number 5, don't post number 5. Just look at problem number 5, and if you have any comments on that, you're welcome to do that. Send the comments, post your comments about that problem, but don't create a new posting for that same problem. All right. I'd like to talk about the percent today. A lot of you were asking me how to solve the percent problems. So if I have a percent, I should be able to convert that into either decimal or fraction. That's the first thing I should know how to do. So if I want to convert this into decimal or fraction, I need to know a factor. So if I have this number here, I'll just call it A. A could be a decimal, fraction, mixed fraction, could be any number. So if I just call it A for right now, A times. I need to multiply this A by a factor in order to, by a number, to convert it to the fraction or decimal. So time to time I would ask students who log into the session for responding to questions. So please do so. So I have Daisy online. Daisy, can you tell me if you know what would be the number that you have to multiply A with to convert it to the decimal? So what would be this number here that I should put here? What do you think? What do you think that factor would be in this case? Daisy, I know you have your mic today, so can you click on the talk button and tell me whether you know what do you have to multiply A with to get the corresponding decimal number? If you don't know it, just type I don't know, then I can move along. Do you know, Daisy? What do you have to multiply A with to convert it to the decimal?
I'm confused.
Be confused. No problem. That's what we're here for. You multiply A with a factor which is 0.01. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example now. If my A is 50%, let's make it a real simple example. Okay. So if I want to convert 50% into the decimal, the corresponding decimal, Okay, can you try now, Daisy? If I want to change 50% to its corresponding decimal, can you tell me what do you get if you multiply this 50 with 0.01? Can you tell me that? Okay, so Daisy, what do you think would be 50 times 0.01? That's the corresponding.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What is that?
50 times 0.01 equals 0.5.
0.5. Very good. And that should make sense, right? 50% of something would be 0.5 of something. So if I go ahead and want to change that to its corresponding fraction, so now we can find what would be the factor for fraction. What is 0.1 is in fraction? Basically, what do you think 0.1 is? If I convert 0.1 into fraction, what do I get? One over what? So 0.1 would be, Daisy, do you know what 0.1 is? I mean 0.01. 0.01. What is 0.01?
Isn't it 1?
1 over what?
One over 2?
0.01 would be 1 over 100. Not 1 over 2. 1 over 2 would be half of something, but 0.01 would be 1 over 100, right?
You're correct,
Remember
yes.
that 0.1 is 1 over 10, right? 0.01, right, would be
1 over 1,000.
Well, yeah, that would be 1 over 100, right? And then if I put 0.01 would be 1 over 100, and then 0.001 would be 1 over 1,000. Do you see that?
Yes.
So for every decimal place you have here, you have a 0 here. You have 3 zeros here. So 0.01, you convince that is equal to 1 over 100. So the factor that you have to remember to convert 8% to a fraction is 1 over 100 or 0.01. That's the only thing that you need to memorize or remember, that if I have 8%, like 50%, if I'm going to convert it to its corresponding decimal, if I multiply by 0.01, I get 0.5. If I want to convert that to its corresponding fraction, I have to multiply this by 1 over 100 now. So 50 times 1 over 100. What is 50 times 1 over 100? If I can put a 1 here at the bottom of the fraction, looks like this would be 50 over 100. Do you see that? So what is 50 over 100 when I reduce that, Daisy? What?
150 over 100, 5.
can reduce 50 over 100 will give me 5 over 10. If I reduce it even more, that give me what? Divide top and bottom of the fraction by 5, I get
2/5. 1/2.
over 1/2. Very good. 1/2. So you should make sense. 0.5 is 1/2, right? If I didn't want to go this route, even if I didn't want to go this route, multiplying 50 by 1 over 100 to get this corresponding number in terms of fraction, I knew 50% is 0.5. So 0.5 is 5 over 10. If I reduce it, I get 1/2. So that should make sense. 50% means half of something, or 0.5. So these are the factors that you have to remember to convert. Every time you have a%, you want to convert it to its corresponding fraction. You remember that you take that a, you multiply by 1 over 100. If you have a%, you want to convert it to its corresponding decimal. You multiply by 0.01, and that is the example. One more thing you need to know before we look at more examples is how do I convert from, let's say, a fraction or decimal into its corresponding percent. Now I'm going to go the other way around now. So let's call this B now. I have a number B. I want to convert that to its corresponding percent. Daisy, what do you think would be the factor now? What do you multiply that B with in order to get it into the percent? What do you think? What do you multiply B with to get it to the percent?
I don't know.
Don't know. Okay, that's fine. Let's look at the example. You see how I have 0.5? If I wanted to change it to, if I wanted to change this 0.5 to its corresponding percent, what do you think we multiply? What do you multiply 0.5 to get 50? You multiply 0.5 by a factor of 10, right? What? Am I multiplying by 10? No, if I multiply by 10, that becomes 5. Am I multiplying by 100? Looks like I'm multiplying this by 100. If I multiply 0.5 by 100, don't I get 50? So the factor I just have to remember is 100. If you have a number in terms of fraction or decimal, and you want to convert that to its corresponding percent, you take that number and you just multiply by 100 and you put a percent sign in front of that. So example of that would be if I want to convert, let's say if I want to convert 0.5 to its corresponding percent. You take 0.5 and you multiply it by 100, the factor of 100, and you put a percent sign in front of that. 5 times 100 is the same as 50. So 0.5 is 50%. The two things you need to remember here. One is to convert any number in terms of percent to its corresponding fraction. You take that number and you multiply by 1 over 100. Or if you want to convert to the decimal, you take that number and you multiply by 0.01. If you want to do it the other way around, if you want to change the fraction or decimal, get it back into the percent, you take that number and multiply by 100 and you put the percent sign in front of that. So, for example, 0.5 would be the same as 0.5 times 100 is equal to 50%. So Daisy, do you follow that so far?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's take a look at some examples now. This example is from one of those problems in the practice midterm exam. By the way, this problem here, I'm double checking, make sure everybody posted the solution to this in the discussion forum. And it looks like one student already posted the question, the answer to this in the forum. But we're going to go over this. So Daisy, tell me, how would you convert 80% as a fraction now? Do you remember the factor, right? So what do you think you have to multiply 80 with in order to get it into the fraction? You multiply 80 by what?
By 100.
Let's go back to our lesson here. Say if you have an 8% and you want to change it to the fraction, we said the factor that we have is what?
1 over 100.
1 over 100. So you have to take that number, this is 80, and multiply it by 1 over 100 according to what we just learned. So it would be 1 over 100. So this is how you convert that into its corresponding fraction. So in this case, looks like we get 80, I can put the 1 down here, so it's 80 over 100. So if I reduce 80 over 100, what do I get, do you think? I can drop the zeros, divide top and bottom by 10, I get 8 over 10. And if I divide top and bottom fraction by 2, what's half of 8 and half of 10, what do we get?
4 over 5.
4 over 5. If you check your answer, you see they say 80% is the same as 4 over 5. Do you follow that?
Yes.
Good. All right, let's take a look at another example. Here you got 12.5% as a fraction. So your A is a mixed number now. So can you tell me what would be the first step here then, Daisy? You take 12.5, you multiply it by what? Same factor, right?
Yes, 100.
So let's go back again. Did you say 100? You didn't say 100. You said if you have 8%, if you have 8%, you want to change it to corresponding fraction. We said you take A and multiply it by 1 over 100, not 100, right?
Yes, 1 over
So
100.
you don't change the factor now. You have to be 1 over 100. Okay. So you have to multiply still by 1 over 100. You have to keep remembering that, 1 over 100. So what would be your first step here now? How do you multiply a mixed number with a fraction here? What would be your first step? I can write 12.5 as an improper fraction. If I do that, what do I get? Do you remember that?
Do you first have to work out the fraction here? The 12 times 2, which is 24. Plus 1 is 25.
Wait, so 12 times 2 plus 1.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. So you change it to
25 over 2.
Wait, 25 over 2. You multiply that by 1 over 100. So now we need to reduce this. Can I reduce any of these? 25 and 100, right? Both of those are reducible, right? Can I divide 25 into 100? How many times?
4.
Wait, this would be 1, this would be 4. So at the top of the fraction is 1 times 1, which is 1. At the bottom of the fraction I get 2 times 4 is equal to 8. So 12.1% as a fraction is equal to 1/8. Okay, now let's take a look and see why, Daisy, we need to convert percent to the fraction. What do you think we should can you tell me why you're converting 12 and 12% into the fraction? What's the advantage of that, do you think?
Well, it's for you to You have to reduce it.
You reduce, but the main advantage that I can see is if I come to you, it says you can have 12.5% of my pizza. You have no idea what I'm talking about, right?
You're correct. I wouldn't know.
If I tell you, okay, look, you can have 1/8 of my pizza or 1/2 of my pizza, you have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So when you convert that percent into a fraction or decimal, then you can carry that result into the next level of calculation. So that's why we need to know how to do that. So let's take a look at another example here from your sample midterm. 395% as a decimal. So Daisy, you should know how to do this problem now. So you take that number that your A is 395 and you have to multiply by a factor. Do you remember what factor that to change it to the decimal? What's the factor we talked about? What do we need to multiply 395 with to get it into its corresponding decimal? Should we go back to the note again, or you remember it?
Are we still over 1 over 100?
Well, here's a decimal now, right? We were fractions, that was 1 over 100, right? We were fraction was 1 over 100. But look at what you said. If it's a decimal, what is the factor now?
Yeah.
It's not 1 over 100 anymore. It is what? Point
1 over 1,000?
0.01. That's the factor is 0.01.
Oh, 0.001.
Not 0.00, 0.01. 1 over 100 is the same as 0.01. That's all you have to remember. So the factor to convert to decimal is 0.01. The factor to convert to fraction is 1 over 100. So we go back to that problem here. So the factor is 0.01. So basically you have to multiply that given number and multiply by 0.01 to get the corresponding number in terms of decimal. Looks like the decimal point would be right here, right? So if you have 395, if I didn't have to multiply by anything, the decimal point would be right here, right? When you when you multiply by 0.01, that looks like you're moving this decimal 2 to the left, right? So that would be 1, 2. So it would be, that's one way to do it. It would be 3.95. Okay, so that's how you convert 395% as a decimal. You follow that?
Yes.
Let's take a look at this example. 9% as a decimal. Okay? So how do you convert 9% as a decimal now? Okay, you tell me, Daisy. You take 9, your A is 9, and you multiply that by what? What's the factor?
1 over...
Decimal. Remember decimal? Go back to the formula again. See, decimal.
0.01.
It's 0.01. It's point.
Yeah, 0.01.
0.01. Very good. 0. Yeah, you can say that. So, okay. So that would be 0.01. So very good. That is the factor. Don't forget that. So that is the factor you multiply with. 9 times 0.01. So that gives me 0.09. Okay? Do you follow that?
Yes.
Look at another example. 0.001 as a percent. Now we're going to go the other way around. So how do you convert decimal to percent? You have 0.001. You have to multiply that by, what is the factor we talked about? What do you have to multiply that with?
0.01.
Go back to our notes again. Okay. You said if you have fraction or decimal, you want to convert it to the percent, you multiply it by what?
100.
100. You multiply by 100. So you have to remember that. You have to multiply that with 100 and then you put a percent sign in front of that. That's all you have to do. Okay? So what is 0.01 times 100? It means you have to move this decimal point 2 times to the right. So it looks like we get 0.1%.
0.1.
So 0.001, if I want to convert 0.001 as a percent, that's the same as 0.1%. You follow that?
Yes.
45 as a percent. If I want to change any number to a percent, you multiply that by a factor. What is that factor?
100.
Talked about that. 100, very good. You multiply it by 100 and you put a percent sign in front of that. So that would be the same as what?
0.45.
45 followed by 2 zeros, right? You multiply by 100. So it's 4,500%. Does that make sense? That's how you do it?
No, that one got me confused.
What part?
Well, I thought the answer was 0.45.
When you multiply 45 by 100, what is 45 times 10? It would be 45 followed by 1 zeros, right?
Yes.
What is 45 times 100?
450.
45 followed by 2 zeros.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 45 times 1,000. Which is 45 followed by 3 zeros, and so on, right?
Yes.
So 45 times 100 is 4,500%. All right. Here we have 7/8 as a percent. That we want us to round to the nearest whole percent. So, Daisy, tell me how do you convert 7/8 as a percent? 7/8, your number is 7/8 now. You need to multiply that by a factor to get it into percent. What is that factor?
I don't know this one.
Well, the formula doesn't change. Let's go back to our lesson again. Look, you said if you have a fraction or decimal or any number, b, you want to convert it to the percent. You take that number and you multiply it by 100. You just have to remember this factor, 100.
Yes.
Okay, so what do I have to multiply this with?
100.
100. Just remember the number 100. So you have to multiply this by 100. That would be 100. So I can write 100 over 1 because it's a fraction. And then I would put a 7/8 as a percent, and then I'll put a percent sign in front of that. Okay, so what is 7/8 times 100 over 1? So that would be the same as 700/8. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so 700 divided by 8. If I divide 8 into 700, if I divide 8 into 700, I get 87.5. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So it says rounded to the nearest whole percent. So you only want these whole numbers here. You don't want any decimal. If I want to round this, because this number is 5, if this number is 5 or larger, then you have to add 1 to the digit next to it, right?
Yes.
So this would be, instead of 87, would be 88%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If you want to round it, that would be 88%. That gives you my answer. Do you follow that now? Again, the same idea. You multiply it by 100, just like the previous example. See? If I want to change 45 to a percent, I multiply by 100. If I want to change 7/8 as a percent, I just multiply by 100. Doesn't matter if it's 45 or 7/8. You just multiply by 100 and put the percent sign in front of that. You follow that?
I just have a little question. Now, when you do
sure.
the 100 over 1, you know how sometimes it's 1 over 100?
Right.
Like sometimes you use 1 over 100, and like right now you put 100 over 1. How do I know when to do that?
Good question. Let's go back to our lesson. Okay. When you're converting from percent to the fraction, you multiply that number by 1 over 100, always. When you do the other way around, if you're converting fraction to a percent, you multiply by 100. 100 is 100 over 1, right?
Yes.
Any whole number, if you want to change it to the fraction, you just put the 1 at the bottom of the fraction. This is a 101. Do you see a difference now?
Yes, I totally missed that step.
Okay. So this one is 100 is 100 over 1, but this is a factor that you have to remember.
Yes.
You said you do follow it?
Yes, I get that step now, because if I would have been working on that problem, I would have put 1 over 100.
Okay. So now you don't. Now you're not going to do that, right?
Yeah, I know now. Yes.
So now you know 100 over 1 is the same as 100, and we do that because I didn't have to put 100 over 1 here because this was the whole number, right?
Yes.
The only reason I make this 100 over 1 because I'm multiplying a number by a fraction, so I made it make both of them fractions. I know 7 times 100 is 700, 8 times 1 is 8, so I know. Okay, good. All right, let's take a look at another example. 1 and 1/5 or 1/5 as a percent. Okay, tell me, what do you have to do? Okay, let's say you want to tell your friends, explain to your friends that you want to convert 1 and 1/5 as a percent, and I have no idea how to do it. And how do you explain this to me? I want you to explain it to me with what you learn now.
Well, first you have to simplify the fraction.
Is that how you're going to start explaining to your friends to simplify the fraction?
Yeah.
Because your friends probably going to ask you, I want to change it to the percent. How do I change it to percent? Tell me that first. How do I convert anything to percent? What's the rule for that? What do I have to multiply that with to get it to the percent? That's what I want to know.
1 over 100.
You're going to tell your friends to multiply that number by 1 over 100?
Yes.
Let's go back to the lesson then. Because in the lesson we said if you have a fraction or decimal and you want to convert to a percent,
100 over 1.
1 over 100. You're going to multiply by 100, right?
Yes.
So tell them correctly. So you want to tell that first of all you have to take that number, whatever that number is. You don't even worry about the format of this number. I don't care what it is. This is a number, but the point that you want to out to your friend is, look, you have to multiply this number by 100 and then put a percent sign in front of that, and you're done. Now you have to worry about converting numbers. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Then you're probably going to tell them, look, because it's a fraction, but if you just call this 100 over 1, so everything would be looks like fraction. Okay. Now you can tell your friend, yes, let's go ahead and convert this mixed number into a proper fraction so I can multiply by 100 or 100 over 1. So tell me, what do you get when you multiply 1 and 1/5 into the proper fraction?
6 over 5.
Okay, good. 6 over 5. We're almost there. What is 6 over 5 times 100 over 1? Can I reduce anything before I multiply?
Well, the answer is 600 over 5.
Okay, before you multiply these numbers, what if you just reduce that? Learn how to reduce before you're creating a larger number. See, 100 and 5 both are factor of 5, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay, so if I divide 100 and 5, both of them by 5, I would get 1 here. What do you get at the top of the fraction? 5 divided by 100 is
20.
20. See, it's a lot easier to deal with a smaller number. So now my answer is 20 times 6, right?
Yes.
Which is
That's
what?
120 over 5.
It would be 120%, 120%. Don't forget that percent sign just sits right next to that number until you're done with your calculation. So 1 and 1/5, you want to convert to the percent, that would be 120%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you would get the same answer if you didn't reduce 6 over 5 times 100 over 1. You were going to multiply this and write this as 600 over 5, right? That's what you were going to do. But if you divide 5 into 600, you're still going to get 120, right?
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, so easier to reduce than creating this larger number. That's the point. So, but don't forget again, when you want to change, you want to convert anything to the percent, you multiply it by just the number 100 or 100 over 1. Okay, good. All right, now we're going to look at some application of these. Here it says, what is 60% of 500 kilometers? So of means multiply. Of means multiply. So that means you are multiplying 60% by 500. Does that make sense? So what is means like in, I don't know, 60%, 60% of means multiply 500. Okay, so the question really is asking you to multiply 60% by 500. So the first thing I have to do is convert 60% to the decimal or fraction so I can multiply by 500. It's really up to you if you want to change it to the decimal or fraction. So just to be curious, which one do you think would be easier for you to convert to? If I want to change, is it easier to convert 60% to the fraction or decimal? I mean, just asking what's your preferences. You like decimal better or fraction?
I would think
fraction.
Fraction, yes.
Okay. Fraction sometimes is easier because you can reduce. I agree with you. So 60%, if I want to change 60% to its corresponding fraction, what do you have to multiply against 60? What is that magic number that you need to multiply with? What is that factor?
100.
Should we go back to our lesson again? Is that what I said? I said if you want to convert 80% to its corresponding fraction, did I say you multiply by 100?
1 over 100.
No, 1 over 100. 100 is when you're going to go fraction or decimal to percent. Don't mix those up, please. Write it down somewhere. Do you have that in front of you? Did you write that?
Yeah, I have notes that I'm going to go over and study.
Okay. Now, for a while, what I suggest is to write this little chart in front of you. You have it in front of you for a while. You can refer to it, and you maybe want to make a flashcard out of it.
Yeah, I took a picture of it.
Okay, good. Okay. Picture will do too. Okay, so here we have the problem. Okay, so what is 60% of 500 kilometers? So 60%, so we're convinced here that you have to multiply that 60 by 1 over 100 then, right? So
yes.
If I multiply by 1 over 100, it's like I have to take 60. I'm going to change 60 to 60 over 1 then, right? 60 over 1.
Yeah.
So 60 over 1 times 1 over 100 times 500. These are the numbers I have to multiply to find my answer. And before I do anything, if I multiply these numbers, we said we're going to reduce. So can you tell me, Daisy, what do you like to reduce here? First?
60 over 100.
So how about 500 and 100? Wouldn't it be easier?
Yes.
This would be just 5, right?
Yes.
Done. So 60 times 5 must be my answer. What is 60 times 5?
300.
300, yeah. Now, one thing you have to remember for these kind of problems, you have to have a unit next to it, otherwise your answer is not complete. What unit I should put in front of this?
What do you mean by a unit?
Well, here it says, what is 60% of 500? They don't say 500, they say 500 kilometer, right? The unit is, this is the unit that you're talking about.
Oh, kilometers. Yeah.
Kilometers. So you want to write kilometers. Sometimes it's an abbreviation, KM, that's a kilometer. But you have to put a unit there. Your unit is kilometer here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You cannot give your answer with no unit. You have to have a unit next to it. Okay. Find 120% of this number, 3,460. And somebody already posted the solution to this into the forum. So find 120% of. Remember, of means what?
Multiply.
Multiply. So basically they're asking you to multiply these two numbers together. Okay. So how do I convert 120%? Should I change it to a percent or should I change it to the decimal? Should I change it to the fraction or should I change it to the decimal? And you said you like fraction, I remember, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to convert 120, change it to the fraction. What do I have to multiply the 120 with? What's the magic number?
1 over 100.
Okay, 1 over 100. So I can put the 1 here now too, so I can make everything fractions. So this would be really 120 over 1 times 1 over 100 times that number over 1. This is what we're doing. So the answer to this would be that number we're looking for. Now we need to reduce this. Can I reduce these?
Yeah.
This 120 and 100 is a 0 front of them, so I would drop the 0 or divide it by 10. So that one way. And this 10 can be reduced with this 0, 3, 4, 6. I'm just dropping the zeros now by dividing by 10. Right? So that's it. At the top of the fraction is 12 times 346. What is 12 times 346? 4,152. And there is no unit here. Find 120% of this number. So if they say, instead of say 3,460, if they make this in terms of dollar sign or something, then you have to have a dollar sign here too. So there's no unit here, so you can leave it as this. You're done. You follow that?
Yes.
5% of what number is 19? Okay, so let's see how you set that up. 5% of means what? What does of mean? Multiply, doesn't change. Of means multiply, right? 5% of what number? What number? I'm going to create a variable for this. Let's call it n or x. What is means? Is means equal. So I'm making an equation out of it. 5% of multiply n is 19. Do you follow that so far?
Yes.
First thing is you can convert it into a structural equation. What would be the next step, do you think? You need to convert something. What do you have to convert? What are you converting?
I'm thinking.
Remember, every time you have a percent, you want to either change it to a decimal or fraction, so I can make more sense out of this. So looks like the first step is to change that 5% to decimal or fraction. Maybe that would make sense, right?
Yeah. Can we try the decimal now?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking to do actually. To this time, because this is not a fraction, probably decimal would be easier. So to do that, I have to multiply this number. What's the magic number here? What's the factor for that? Do you remember the factor?
Is it 1 over 100?
The decimal. Let's go back to a lesson. When you want to convert, when you want to convert the 8% to corresponding decimal, you multiply by what?
0.01.
Yeah, you have to remember that. Decimal is 0.01, fraction is 1 over 100.
Yeah.
So, back to our problem. So that's what you do. You multiply that by 0.01 or 0.01. So you have 5 or 5.0, right? You multiply by 0.01, you make the number smaller, right? You move it 2 digits to the left. So 1, 2. So that would be 0.05. So 5 times 0.01 is the same as 0.05. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, it makes sense.
0.05. So 0.05 times n is equal to 19. Now how do you solve for n? Solve for n, you have to divide both sides of the equation here by the number that attached to n. So in this case, that number is coefficient 0.05. If I divide both sides of the equation by 0.05, n would be all by itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's how you eliminate the numbers attached to that variable. So in this case, n 0.05 or 0.05 would be 1. This would be 1. It's 1. So 1 times n would be n. So n is equal to 19 over 0.05. So I'm assuming everything else would be y by now. So if you divide 0.05 by 19, you would get 380. You can use a long division for that. Do you follow the steps?
Yeah, I'm following.
%5 of what number is 18? Round to the nearest whole number. Okay, 5%. What's of mean?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. What number? I'm going to call it n. What is means?
Equals.
equal 18. So this is the equation I have to solve for. 5% of n is equal to 18. Okay, so if you were going to explain to your friends, what would be the next step, Daisy? What would you say?
You have to divide it by 0.01. Multiply it by 0.2.
So are you saying that I have to convert 5% to its corresponding decimal now?
Yes, to a decimal.
Okay. So you want me to convert this to a decimal. I remember I have to take 5 and multiply by a factor to get it to decimal. What was that factor, Daisy?
0.01.
0.01. Okay, I know how to do that. So 0.01. So that gives me 0.05 then. So I can change that 5% to 0.05. That looks like better to solve now. Okay, Daisy, how do I solve for n now? How would I get rid of that 0.05 on the left-hand side?
You gotta divide both sides by 0.05.
Alright, that's easy. I can divide both sides here by this number. So the number that they're looking for, the n, would be really 18 divided by 0.05. I know how to do that already because we passed dividing decimal. So the answer would be 360. What percent of 60 is 21? Let's set that up. What percent, I'm going to call it n, of means multiply, 60 is means equal. The equation looks a little different now. You have n times 60 over 21. I don't have to convert any decimal here, so I can go right into solving for n. Daisy, how would you solve for n? You divide both sides by what?
By 60?
60. If I do that, I would get n is equal to 21 over 60. Again, I should know how to divide by now. So if I divide 60 into 21, I would get 0.35. But wait a minute, I got my answer in terms of decimal. They're telling me what percent. How do I change my percent to the decimal? Oh, the other way. How do I change my decimal into a percent? Easy?
I'm looking at my notes.
How do I change? Yeah, okay, the person knows for now, but at some point you need to memorize it. How do I change my decimal and convert it to the percent? That's my question now. There's a factor that I remember.
100?
That we have to do. 100, very good. We multiply by 100 and then put a percent sign right in front of that. That's all I have to do. So that's easy enough. I can move this 2 digits to the right. Looks like the answer is 35%. What percent of 65 is 520? Let's set this up. What percent, I'm going to call it n, of n multiply. 65 is equal 520. Doesn't look like I need to convert anything here. I just have to go right into solving this for n. Daisy, how do I solve this for n?
You have to divide both sides by 65.
That easy. So n would be equal to 520 divided by 65. So if I divide 65 here by 520,
equals 8.
8, very good. Wait a minute, this is not a percent, so what do I have to do now? It says what percent? How do I convert 8 to corresponding You have to take 8 and multiply it by a factor. What is that, Heidi?
100.
100. So that would be like 800%. That's my answer. Okay, Daisy, can you read this question for me? Then I'll set them up.
To make car payments, a teenager borrows $700 from a relative for 7 years at 3% simple interest. Find the amount of simple interest that is due.
Okay, do you know the formula for the simple interest, Daisy?
Oh, I do not. I'm having a lot of trouble with these two.
Well, it's very simple. PRT. That's easy enough to remember.
Okay.
The principal that you're borrowing, how much I'm borrowing here? $700, right?
Mm-hmm.
R stands for the rate, the percent rate that they're charging you, which is how much here? What's the rate?
3%.
3%. T is the time. What's the time here?
7 years.
7 years. That's all you have to do, just multiply the principal, which is 700, times the rate, and times the time. But wait a minute, I have 3% here. I need to convert that to something I can calculate. 3% I can convert to the decimal or fraction. Which one you like to do this time? Decimal or fraction?
We can keep going with the decimal.
Okay, so 3% would be, you want to go with decimal. I like the decimal. So what do you get? 3 times, what's the factor here? You multiply by what?
100.
Oh, go back to a note again. Did I say when you multiply 3% to the decimal, you multiply by 100? No, we said if you have 8% and you want to convert it to the decimal, and you take that A and you multiply it by
0.01.
Very good, 0.01. Very good. You have to multiply by 0.01, so this would be 0.03 then. So I can change that 3% to 0.03, and that's all I have to do now is to multiply these 3 numbers together. The simplest thing for now. If you do that, your answer would be, what do you get if you multiply the numbers together?
147.
You get 147. What I'm missing here in my final answer? What's missing? Something I said earlier cannot be ignored. The unit. What's the unit here?
Dollar sign.
Dollar sign. The unit is here is the dollar sign, so you have to put a dollar sign in front of this number to complete the answer. Okay, let's take a look at the next example. Daisy, go ahead and read this question for us, please.
A lab technician has 7,800 milliliters of solution. 3% is acid. How many milliliters are acid?
Okay. Well, can you tell me what I have to do with these 2 numbers to find the answer? It says 7,800 milliliter of. What of means?
Multiplication.
So, would you agree that I have to multiply these 2 numbers? They're really asking what 3% of 7,800 is. So you have to multiply these 2 numbers together, basically. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, if you were going to explain this to your friends, what would you suggest would be to do for the first step?
I would say you have to multiply, is it 3 times 0.01?
Okay, so you would say change your 3% to its corresponding decimal or fraction. That's what you mean, right?
Yes.
And you would tell them if you multiply that 3 by 0.01, since you already know the factor, that's how you can convert it to 0.03 and change it to 0.03. That's what we should tell, right?
Yes.
Okay. Good. And then you would multiply those two numbers together. That's easy enough, right? We already know how to multiply decimals. So what do you get if you multiply these two numbers together now?
Mommy. 234.
Okay, good. 234. So what I'm missing in this problem now for the final answer?
The milliliters.
Unit. Very good. The unit is milliliter, and use the symbol ml. So that's good enough. Go ahead and read the next question for us, please.
A customer paid $6.42 in sales tax on a set of chairs that cost $321. What was the sales tax rate?
How do you think I should set up the formula for this? You take $6.42 in the sales tax, but the purchase price was $321. You want to find the tax rate. So basically, the tax rate is the number that the percentage that they charge times the amount that you go buy the item, the price of the item. In this case, the price of the item is given to me at $321, right? So if I multiply the rate of the tax, if it's 2%, 5%, 6%, whatever that is, times the cost of the item, that would be the amount that they charge you for the tax. Does that make sense? And they're giving to you that the customer paid, you know that you paid $6.42 for the tax. That this was the sales tax. How they figure out the sales tax is they get a rate, whatever rate the tax rate is, you multiply by the amount of the cost of the item. I'm going to put cost here. If I multiply the rate times the cost, that should be the amount that you're paying for the tax. Does that make sense so far what we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically this is the rate that you're looking for. R times the cost, whatever cost was $321. It came out to be $6.42. On the receipt says you paid $6.42 for the tax. So if I solve this equation, that would give me the rate of the tax. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, so to solve for R, what do you have to do? You divide both sides by what?
321.
Yeah, so you divide both sides of the equation by 321. So therefore, we would get, on the left-hand side, you get R times 321 over 321. On the right-hand side, you get 6.21 divided by 321. So you see how this cancels? You get, it turns to 1, and then you get a rate is equal to 6.42 divided by 321. So if I divide 321 by 6.42, again you're past the dividing decimal, assuming you really know how to do that. So this should give you 0.02. So the long division. So wait a minute. The rate should be presented in terms of the percent. Now we got the decimal. We know how to change decimal to the percent. Do you remember how to change decimal to percent? What's the factor? You multiply that by what?
100.
100. Very good. So you want to change the decimal to corresponding fraction, or if you want to change the decimal to the percent, you multiply by 100. Very good. You remember that. So that would be equal to what then? We'll move this 2 to the right. it would be just 2%. So the rate is, tax rate here must be 2% if you pay $6.42 for the item cost $321. Does that make sense? You follow all that?
Yes, it makes sense.
Go ahead and read the next question for us, please.
A mine produces an ore that is approximately 50% iron. How much ore must be mined to produce 50 pounds of iron?
The numbers are pretty straightforward here. So basically, you have to find really 50% of, I'm going to call it N, to be equal to 50 pounds. So you want to get 50 pounds. So what's the 50% of what number is 50 pounds, basically? So to solve for N, you need to divide both sides here by 50%. So what would be the first step here, do you think, Daisy, to solve for this?
I would change it into a decimal.
Really good. So you change the percent into a decimal. Okay, so 50%, change it to the decimal, have to multiply it by what? 50 times what?
0.01.
Very good, 0.01. So that would be
0.5.
to the left would be 0.5. 0.5 or half of something is equal to 50%. So now I can work with this equation. So what do I have to divide both sides here with to solve for N?
0.5.
0.5, 0.5, 0.5. So N is equal to 50 divided by 0.5. If I do that, what do I get?
$100.
100. So what's missing in this problem here now at the end?
The unit?
Units, right? Yeah. So what would be units here, do you think?
Iron.
No, iron.
Well, how much ore must be mined to produce 50 pounds of iron? So 100 pounds?
Pounds is the unit. Pounds. The unit is pounds. And they use LB, symbol LB for pounds. They can put LB or pounds. Okay. All right, let's read the next question for us.
A movie ticket service sells tickets over the phone at 25% off the full price plus a 75-cent per ticket service charge. What is the total cost of 2 tickets that sell for $9 at full price?
For this problem here, we want to buy 2 tickets. Let's figure out how much 1 ticket costs, and then multiply by 2. That would be how much the 2 tickets cost. Remember that there's a fee of 75 cents for each ticket. So this fee, I'm going to put this side added to that. Now, it says 25% off if I buy it. 25% of what? 25% of full price, right? So I have to figure out what is the discount I'm getting here to buy this over the phone. So, question is, what is 25% off that I'm getting? What is 25% of $9 worth to me? Does that make sense? That's the first thing you have to calculate.
Yes.
So that's easy enough. The 25%, I'm going to convert it to its corresponding decimal, you're expert on that right now. You just 0.25 times 0.01, and you multiply that by 9. That would give me the amount of discount I get. If I multiply this correctly, I get $2.20. I'm going to put the unit here also so it makes more sense than what we're calculating here. So, looks like if I buy this over the phone, I get 25% off the full price. The full price is $9 here. So I would get $2.20 off. So let's figure out how much one ticket would cost me. So $9 was originally minus, now they give me a discount of $2.20. So for each ticket, looks like I only have to pay $6.75 after the discount. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so if I buy one ticket, it would cost me $6.75 with the 25% discount. Now I have to pay another 75 cents because of the fee they're charging me. So for one ticket, I have to pay how much?
$7.75
plus 75 cents. That gives me $7.50 for one ticket. But we want to buy two tickets. So for two tickets,
$15.
I have to multiply that by 2 basically. Multiply this by 2. And how much do I pay?
$15.
$15. That's your my final answer. Last question on the problems related to the percent in the practice midterm exam. So let's read the last question for us, please.
Okay. An art school began 10 straight years of materials fee increases by raising its material fee from $600 to $879. Find the percent increase.
Okay, so from 600 to 879, so the difference, we need to find the difference, is 279. So basically what we have to figure out here is 279 is what percent of original price was 600. Does that make sense? That's what you're figuring.
Yes.
So the question is 279, the difference that you just calculated is what percent, I'm going to call it N, what percent of 600. So let's make a question out of this. 279 is what percent of this multiply 600. To solve for N, what do we have to do? Divide both sides by what?
600.
600. And then we find N. N is equal to 279 divided by 600. If I divide this correctly, I get 0.465. But wait a minute, this is not the percent. How do I change this to the percent? How do you change a decimal into a percent? Daisy, this is the last question I'm going to ask you, so think about it. You multiply by what?
100.
Yeah, 100. And then put the percent sign in front of that. So that would be 46.5%. Okay, so do you feel a little bit more comfortable with the percent problem now?
Yes, I do. I think I just have to practice my when to do the 100 and the 1 over 100. I just think that's my problem.
Great. What I'd like you to do is to email everyone in class today. You know how to do that, right?
Yes.
Send the email to everyone in the class and say you joined the session and tell me how you liked it. And then let them know that they should attend the next session. But I would also put a recording archive of this session for everyone. But go ahead and let everybody know how you feel about the session and encourage everyone to join for the next session, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty, so I'm going to stop recording right now.